So welcome back to our time with Dr. Pearlstein in a conversation related to the COVID-19 vaccine. And this is our question and answer session. And the first question for you, Dr. Pearlstein, is why does the Pfizer vaccine need to be at cold temps and the Moderna vaccine does not?
It's a great question, and I don't have the exact reason for that. I know that when they develop these vaccines, the mRNA needs to be in a very cold environment for it not to fall apart, and I guess that all of them, they all had the technology, and they all took that technology and built it the way they felt the safest way or the most effective way was. So interestingly enough, all 5 companies that will be coming out with vaccines are all a little bit different on its storage.
Mm-hmm. Sure. So we talked a little bit in our first session about those that maybe should or shouldn't get the vaccine. One question specifically related to that is, if somebody is tested positive, would you advise that they still get vaccinated?
Absolutely. We don't know what a lot of this coronavirus is new to us. Unfortunately, we don't have great records from 1918 when the first pandemic came. So we don't know what that means. That yes, I tested positive. Yes, I have antibodies. Do my antibodies work to keep me from getting it again? What, will it be 3 months, 6 months, a year? We really don't have that. We don't have that knowledge. The other thing is, half the reason we're getting the vaccine is not for ourselves. It's for our fellow people. And the more people that get this vaccine and we cut it off, that we can't be a vector, that's why we're doing it. So we want to make sure that in 8 months from now, you are safe. And that's why everyone should get the vaccine.
Okay. So you mentioned earlier the one study where a number of individuals had an allergic reaction and they were okay within 15 minutes or so afterwards. From your experience that, where you talked about the doctors did they have EpiPens available? How will the people giving the vaccine monitor and then treat somebody who might have a reaction?
Great question. And the FDA is what does the recommendations. So every place that will be vaccinated, and at this point, vaccinations are all being done institutionally, meaning either the hospitals are doing it or CVS/Walgreens are doing all the vaccines. So they have a protocol in place. The protocol really is they have to have an EpiPen present, and you have to wait 15 minutes because all the people that had an allergic reaction all happened within the first 5 minutes. So they found that no one after that 5 minutes has had any problems. But like any vaccine, any medication that's new, you always want to watch someone for 5 or 10 minutes just to make sure they're not woozy or they're not feeling bad. There has been no reported cases of problems. So, there's already been, who knows, there's already been at least 1 million, maybe a couple million doses given so far. So we would start getting all that data if there were problems. But at this point, the hospitals are making you sit and wait 15 minutes, and the people that are giving the vaccines have an EpiPen available if necessary.
Great. So also one of the things that we've heard is that individuals that have been vaccinated are still supposed to be tested in these settings where those testing of staff or residents is required. Could you speak a little bit to why you think we'll still need to be tested even if we're vaccinated?
I don't necessarily agree with that. So I'm not necessarily a proponent of it. I think that until the state comes out with the data of how many people within the facilities are being actually vaccinated, that will change things a lot. I think that a lot. I think the reason they want us to continue is because they're not sure what's going to happen when it comes to the numbers. But once we start getting data by the middle of January, end of January, and we could show that 80-90% of the residents as well as the employees of these long-term care facilities get tested, I think that you'll see that we won't be testing as much.
Okay. Again, we talked a little bit about those that maybe have to think a little bit more carefully about whether they get vaccinated because of their situation. So do you know of any recommendations for a mom that's currently nursing a newborn baby, and what the impact of vaccination might have in that group?
Again, I can only go by the FDA, and the FDA says that they are safe to get the vaccine. There is not enough. I mean, there's no. You can ask an obstetrician. You can go that direction. I don't know how much information they're going to have, but when you read the safety of the vaccine, they have nursing mothers and have not had issues.
Yeah, great. So I know that we've just experienced at Frederick that there's for some more comfort with getting vaccinated, but we know that there'll still be some in January when they have that opportunity to get vaccinated that won't be ready, or just maybe need a little bit more time to make that decision. Are you aware, in this, if somebody in this setting, obviously we're in that tier 1A, so to speak, as a nursing facility, if somebody decides not to this time, do you have any sense for when they might get another opportunity to get vaccinated if they make that decision that they want to at a later time?
Well, I think that the way that it's in Pennsylvania with the nursing facilities, there will be a second round of opportunity. Um, after that, so say the facility is given a date of January 5th, and then they'll say, well, we come back 3 weeks later to do the second vaccine. They will probably be offering another date in the future for those people that did not get it. Unfortunately, if you're not going to get it at that time, you kind of have to revert back to, your tier 1, tier 2, that if you're a 40-year-old relatively healthy person, you're not going to end up getting vaccinated till May or June, until, the CVS is now giving it to everybody.
Sure. What about medications? If somebody has 4 or 5 different medications that they're on, is there any concern about the vaccine and how it might interact with somebody that's on certain types of medications?
It's a great question. The good news is that because this is mRNA, it doesn't react to anything. It doesn't cause blood pressure changes. It doesn't cause sugar changes. It really does not interact at all with anything in the body that would interact with a medication.
Okay, great. I know we've touched on this in various different ways, but is there anybody right now that you would say shouldn't be vaccinated?
No.
Okay, great, simple answer. I know we talked about this as well, about the unknowns in terms of how long this vaccine will last, and will we need, continued injections on an annual basis or what have you. So from how will they determine, I mean, what's the ramifications going into this, process where a bunch of people will get vaccinated but not know how long it will last? How will they determine if this is going to need to be done annually, or whether this lasts for longer than that?
Well, it's a two-part question. One is how good the vaccine does going forward, and the second thing is how good the actual COVID-19 virus is. If you read about the pandemic in 1918 and 19, almost 2 years after the beginning, it was totally gone. We had no more coronavirus. Now we have a lot of coronaviruses out there, but the one that they had in 1918 and we have now are very similar. So it's a two-part question. One, we know that the vaccine will work for a minimum of a year. The question is how will the virus itself mutate? Will it still be effective with the vaccine? And how long this mRNA will continue to produce antibodies to fight it? So the plan from the CDC and the FDA is, after about 8 months, that's when the data starts coming back about, are we seeing a little uptick in the amount of people testing positive? Is the vaccine itself as effective as it was on day 1 in 8 months from now? So we will find that out. And then the other thing is the virus mutating in a positive way or a negative way? Is it getting worse? Is it getting better? And all of that is from a mathematical standpoint, is pretty easy to figure out if this is what you do. And I think that we'll, in 8 months from now, so we're looking probably beginning of the summer, June, July, August, we're going to have a lot better idea of what we will be doing next December.
Okay, great. So we know that this is, at least in these first two that were given approval, it's a two-step process for, vaccination. How long does it actually take for a person to become, immune to the disease? Does it start immediately after that first injection, and that second injection is just what, talk a little bit about how long it takes us to actually become immune once we're vaccinated.
Well, you get the vaccine on day one. Within a week, you have about 50% immunity. Up to 3 weeks, you have about 70%. And then the booster, which is the second vaccine, pushes you up in the mid-90s.
Okay.
So you have literally within the week of your first shot, you're 50% better. But more important than you're 50% less likely to get the virus, if you get the virus, it'll be a lot less virulent, meaning that because you've had the vaccine, you will not get sick like most people do or can do.
Okay. So final question for you today is, what about those individuals that have an autoimmune disease? Is that a concern related to the vaccine?
It is not. It is a problem with treatment of when you go to the hospital and you're given remdesivir and some of the medications we give, autoimmune problems are difficult with those medications. This should not affect at all any autoimmune diseases or the medications that you're taking.
Okay. So obviously, people are going to need to go about educating themselves and becoming comfortable with this, because everything seems to be coming at us so fast. Where would you recommend people go that have questions? What are those trusted sources that you would suggest they look into if they need to read more for themselves personally to become comfortable with the vaccine?
Well, the most neutral and most educational place you can go is the CDC. The CDC, I think it's cdc.gov. It is has the most information, data, and they will take you to references and resource points. So they will be able to actually take you to where you want proof of everything that I talk about. I go through the CDC on a regular basis to see what their opinion and what they are telling us to do.
Great. Thank you very much for your time today, Dr. Pearlstein. This has been very helpful for me, and I think for others as well. We certainly appreciate your honesty and your willingness to share with us this morning, and again, just all the help that you've provided to Frederick Living over the years. We greatly appreciate it. And so thanks again for your time today, and hope that you have a great Christmas season with you and your family.
Thank you very much, and everyone out there, be safe.